Hello, I'm Kristen from the Never Ending TBR in Kristen's Corner. Welcome to my backyard. I have not decided how I want to decorate my room, so while it's nice in the morning, I might just start doing some of my videos out here. April, I did not have a good reading month. I got 4, 5, 6, however many I'm going to show done. I remember most of them, and usually I've been vlogging them so that it's fresh in my mind, but I didn't have time last month. Plus, remember how I went in and I was gonna have like Audible April or whatever? It didn't work. Like, I needed to have certain kind of cell service, and like sometimes I had it and sometimes I didn't. So my quest to listen to all my Audible books did not happen. What did I read before? I'll just go with like what I didn't like into what I did like for the month. I DNF'd A Murder at the End of the World by, I think it's Stuart Woods. He did 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, I think is the name of the book. My grandmother had bought it for me. It was beautiful. It had beautiful edges and everything. I was so excited. But the book itself kind of read like a nature documentary, like, but people were the subject. So basically there's this like fog. The air's unbreathable for the rest of the planet. The polar caps have melted and everything like that, and the remaining part of humankind is on this rock up way north, and they have put in the system of you could only live to 65, and then after so many people have passed on, then they bring more life into their little part of the planet. And there's a discrepancy whether or not the toxicity of the breathing levels are safe to go back because it's been so many years. And that's kind of where I left off. There was this one guy that was he was arrested because he was speaking against the current political way of life. And it had potential, but it was so boring to listen to, and I didn't have the physical book to read, and I decided that it's not a me book, so I let it go. What else? I read, so I got abducted by aliens, and now I'm in a rom-com or something like that by Kimberly Lemmings. You knew how excited I was about that book. You knew, like, I happy danced my way to Barnes & Noble. I liked it. I think I still gave it 5 stars. But it has potential for growth, but I think she was trying to do too much too soon, where her medieval romantasy that she wrote before, you kind of didn't need to know about the planet or world building. You didn't really need that in her other books. You just could jump in, this, like, Cinnamon lived on a farm. You can picture a farm. But to go to an alien planet where there are multiple different races trying to live together, it was tough, and you could see where she struggled in the book, and where it was smooth and it was her niche kind of thing. So I'm hoping that the next book she kind of gets more of a rhythm. I still enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I loved Toto, which is the pet lion. I loved him. I thought he was hilarious. I love the fact that it is like the Wizard of Oz kind of thing. So I'm definitely going to read on in the series, but I think I went with different expectations. So that was that book. What else did I read? I read Gallows Hill. I listened to Gallows Hill. I enjoyed it, but I think I'm too much of a Supernatural fan that I was telling this woman as soon as she inherited this vineyard where these nooses at night would pop down out of nowhere, I was like, salt and burn whatever came with the house. Like, I don't care what it is. I don't care. Just salt and burn it. And I don't even know if I remember finishing it. I have no idea how it ends. I think I fell asleep. But it was like the last couple pages. And I think I went back and I listened to it and I was like, oh, they did what I thought they were going to do. But I don't want to say that here and be wrong, if that makes sense. But it just, it dragged. It dragged a lot. I've found that I really do like Darcy Coates' writing. For me, she writes in a very Scooby-Doo kind of way. Like, you get multiple characters, and what I like about her writing is the few that I've read, it's not so much the paranormal or the unexplained that is the villain. It's always people. So, and I love, I don't know if that's a trope or whatever, but I do love that type of storytelling. It's one of the reasons why I like The Walking Dead, because it's not the zombies that are the problem, it's the people. So with this one, I was kind of surprised that there was an actual haunting. And it just, like I said, it would drag, and like the pieces wouldn't fit in the puzzle. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to know this, but there's got to be more information. If this has been going on for hundreds of years, you're telling me that nobody has said to somebody, hey, before you cross the line and the curse gets you, can you go to the library? Find out some things. I don't know. And I like the fact that there was somebody that did rituals to protect the people that lived there, and it was really cool. It just dragged. So it wasn't my favorite Darcy Coates. But I also listened to Hunted, and it was like, I'm trying to think of what movies I've watched. Almost like The Hills Have Eyes kind of feel to it. Even though it wasn't in the desert or in mountains or anything, it was in this hiking area in the middle of nowhere. And it was so good. Like, I was listening and I'm like, oh my God. There was one character I knew he thought he was too cool for school kind of thing, and something was going to happen to him. But the way that they find him, I was like, oh my God. Like, and I felt so bad because like he Googled like all the things that he was going to need, and he wanted to be like the knight in shining armor to find the missing girl, because that's what starts the whole book. Is that there's this woman who's going on a hike, and she's taking pictures, and she is being hunted by something. And when the family is told that they figured out that she's missing because basically this guy is kind of like a stalker, but like not in a mean way. He follows her on her socials and stuff. So he goes to her brother, who he's friends with, and he's like, listen, she's been missing and she hasn't posted in like 78 hours and I'm scared. And so the brother's like, oh my God, you're such a creeper, stop. But then they're like, okay, well, maybe we should really look into it. And somebody finds something of hers. It like goes into the river and somebody finds it, like a hiker finds it. I don't know, but the parents are called, and the brother and his misfit friends get in a car, and they go to the detective, and so does the creeper stalker guy, and they're all trying to figure it out, and they're not equipped for the type of hiking that this entails. And there's this picture and it looks like Bigfoot. And at one point I wrote to the Love and Horror group and I was like, oh my God, is this about Bigfoot? Because I was excited. And I know that Jenny loves Bigfoot and Yetis and all that, and cryptids. And she's like, I guess you got to keep reading. And so I was like, okay. So the detective is like going through her own thing, as these books are, and she doesn't take it seriously. So the brother and his, friends go off into the wilderness thinking they can be the saviors of his sister. And they all lied to their parents that, they're all at each other's house, but they're in college. That was the only thing that I was just like, you're in college. Like, why are you lying to your family? But yeah, and I kind of figured out who it was that was doing all the things. And I loved how the detective just ends any questions. Like, it's not going to happen again kind of thing. And I loved that part. So Hunted was 5 out of 5. What was the other one? I buddy read Double Pucked with Sock from, Bargain something, because I suck at names. And B from Mama Needs to Read Romance. And anyway, so we got an Audible, and it was B's one of her first, I think. Why Choose? It was a hockey romance. It was a smutty good time. I enjoyed it a lot. I loved the female character. Loved her, and the fact that she was a manager of a used bookstore, and she ran like a smutty book club, and it was super cute. But we had gotten it thinking that Teddy Hamilton and, oh my God, Jacob Morgan were going to be the male interests. And they weren't. And I'm like, weren't we supposed to read? That was what we got all excited for. So when I finished, the one that we were looking forward to popped up. And I was like, this is the one we were supposed to read. So we're supposed to try and read that in June. Sock, I'll put your name up. I am so sorry. And I'm just gonna mess it up again. Anyway, so I'm excited to do that buddy read next month. And it's fun to watch B go, oh my God. But because we've been talking about it on Instagram's like, oh, you like this kind of stuff. So for whatever reason, I'm getting a bunch of reels about rugby players and how it relates to smut books. And I was like, guys, we got to read a rugby book. Instagram has spoken. Because, did you know that they, had to give their buddy a wedgie to give them a leg up to catch things? And, it just puts everything on display. Anyway. So, read that. I think, and then the last one was, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. And it's a struggle. I don't know what's going on with his writing style. It's been changing, but a lot of authors go through different ways to write because they get into writing slumps and things like that. but the first 100 pages dragged for the love of Mary. But its main focus is about a time in our history where women were not allowed to have their children publicly. So, whether they were assaulted, or if an uncle, did something, or their high school sweetheart, and the guy's mother was like, absolutely not, you're not marrying my son. You were married and your husband was overseas for the war, things like that. And it was, I want to say, the end of the 40s all the way up to almost mid 80s, where they had these wayward houses. And I find the history fascinating. I don't know about the other ladies with Love and Horror, but I knew women in my own life, but also, just talking to older generations, where they have stories to tell, and it's come out more through the years, mostly because they're, I'm gonna die sometime, so might as well tell you about this kid I had. But I have had family members that were lucky enough that they had supportive family, where they were kind of talked about in, groups and stuff like that out in public. But she didn't have to go to a wayward house because she was of a certain age where her parents were like, okay, if you're going to keep it, you're going to keep it. But a lot of families, they sent their young girls mostly to these houses to basically just be pregnant and then have the baby, give the baby up for adoption, and then go back to life as normal. And that's where all the stories of, Cindy Lou went to Italy or something like that to learn something, and now she came back and she's fine, kind of thing. So that history just fascinates me. And then he incorporated witchcraft, which was something that the 60s into the 80s were, cults and things like that were coming out. And he focused on the time around the Manson murders and things. And there's this woman that has a library book van, and she is recruiting for her coven, but she is under the pretense of giving these girls freedom and autonomy over their body, and to be able to, choose their own path. They have to give something to get something, but, if they want to try it, here's a book. And the book is kind of funny. It's like a groovy way to be a witch or something like that. And it I don't know, like, certain parts of it were really beautiful to me, like these young girls coming into their bodies and realizing that, there's nothing wrong with what they were doing. They aren't disgusting. They aren't, and at the same time, they weren't allowed to talk about it. Like, these girls would go to have their babies and then they would come back to get their stuff, and they were not allowed to tell the other girls how the experience was. So they talked about cesarean sections in the 60s, which, if you ever go down that rabbit hole, ooh, I mean, it's not much better now, but oh my God. And especially for young women, like, they were treated differently if you were not married. They got different treatment. It just, and where the room was, and I I've had so many different stories from older family members that have told me different times they had children and how your marriage status changed where your room was. And I'm like, it's so wild because now you're not supposed to do any of that. So, I don't know. I really liked it. I think I gave it 5 stars. I might have given it 4, but I think I gave it 5 just because it goes all the way through everybody's pregnancies, and there's like not evil forces, but they, like I said, they had to give something to take something, and they took something but never gave what they were supposed to give, and the coven comes to collect, and creepy things happen. And there is a woman that was a midwife for people of color, and you know, it did a lot of historical stuff that just blew my mind, that he fit it in this book but also put little sprinkles of witchcraft. And I remember him doing it with the Southern Vampire Book Club book, but I forgot how well he can do that. So and then at the end it brings you kind of to present and where are they now, and it tied it up in a nice bow. But like I said, the first 100 books, 100 pages, not books, it drags. It really does. But if you can get past it, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, who knew that I could ramble for 22 minutes on 6 books? 6 books, 5 books, I don't know, but I think I talked about everything. We are almost halfway through the readathon. I will be on Sock's channel on Monday the 12th. I'll put her information down below along with her her username. And we're gonna talk about the readathon so far. She is on Team Time Traveler and I am on Team Pirate, so that should be fun. And yeah, and my goal this month is to figure out how to do a live. I don't know how to do it yet. My computer is 100 years old, so I don't know if it's gonna work, but that's my goal, is to do one live this month. So if you see me on, just popped on for whatever reason, I figured it out. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you read last month. Did you read any of the books that I did? What was your takeaway? How's your reading going so far? And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.